All cultures have their stories. In fact, storytelling is one of the oldest forms of entertainment. This story is about a collection of shadow puppets at the Simon Fraser University Museum of Archaeology and Ethnology. Welcome to the world of the Wayang Kuli. Our story begins with Dharma. Dharma is a Hindu ideology that has many different meanings, one of which describes Dharma as a moral guideline through which personal greatness can be achieved. Let's look at a piece from the Ramayana.
Okay, so here's the story of the exile of Rama. It all started with the king. Dasratha had just announced that Rama would be heir to the throne. The only problem was Manthara. Queen Keki's maid hated Rama. Not only was Manthara ugly, she was also evil. She could not allow Rama to become king, so off she went to the queen's room with a plan.
Queen Keki, you are the king's most cherished wife, yet Rama is not your son. If he is crowned, you will no longer be his favorite. Rama must not be allowed to become the next king.
Kate, in a state of shock, didn't notice the maid slip away. Blinded by fear and jealousy, she made a terrible decision. In the past, Keki had saved Dasratha's life, and in return he gave her 2 requests, neither of which he could refuse.
Remember those 2 wishes you granted me?
Of course. Just ask whatever you wish.
Dasratha could not believe what he heard next.
First, I want you to announce that my son Bharata will be the next king of Kosala. And second, in order for Bharata's rule not to be questioned, I want Rama exiled to the forest for 14 years.
This is where Dharma becomes important. Rama understands completely that he could never refuse his father. You see, Rama understands his Dharma. He knows what he must do. He grabbed his wife Sita and headed out into the forest. A week into exile, Rama was preparing a fire when he heard someone approaching. Suddenly, the bushes parted and out stepped his brother Bharata.
Rama, you must return home. You are the eldest son. The crown should be yours.
Rama explained that he had to follow his own path. He must obey his father's wishes and his own Dharma. He could not return to Kosala until he had served all 14 years of his exile.
Rama, if you will not return, allow me to take your sandals. I will place them next to the throne to symbolize your rightful place as king. I will rule on your behalf until you return, and when you do, the crown is yours.
So, Bharata returned to Kosala and placed the sandals on the throne as a symbol of Rama's place as king. It is said that Bharata will always be remembered for his loyalty and his virtue. No one has followed the lessons of Dharma better than Bharata.
Dharma is about sacrifice and selflessness. It is the righteous path that we all have an opportunity to follow, yet only some do.
Bharat has a great quality. I must sacrifice this everything. And if I will do the service for Rama, I automatically become a great.
These puppets in the collection were donated to the museum anonymously, so that their beauty and their rich tradition can continue to teach new generations about the importance of being an ethically responsible person.
The puppets in the collection at Simon Fraser University come from Indonesia. They were created a long time ago and are part of an ancient tradition in Indonesia.
The individual puppets in this Wayang collection were built between 1870 and 1920. They were made using traditional methods and were built with traditional materials.
This collection was commissioned over a period of time by a family in Indonesia. The family was of Chinese descent, and a descendant of that original commissioning family moved to Canada in the 1960s and donated the collection here. The puppets are made in a traditional manner. They are made by hand. First, the untanned skin of a water buffalo is dried and then carved, pierced, punched, and tooled in various ways to create a very, very complicated tracery pattern like lace. Then the dried skin is painted using a variety of paints and gilt as well, the gold paint that's put on them. After that, they are attached to the support, and the support is carved and then steamed and bent with heat and is made from the horn of the water buffaloes. These ones were made in the same way that ones have been made in Indonesia for hundreds and hundreds of years.
By punching out hundreds of little holes in the buffalo hide, the puppet allows small beams of light to shine through. These intricate cutouts give the puppets an incredible amount of detail.
In the West, we look at a puppet and we see it as a thing. Other cultures will look at it and certainly see that it's a made object, see that it's a puppet. But it's a lot more than that too. It's a living being.
Shadow puppetry, in general, is a spiritual medium. The contrast between light and shadow provides a context through which performances can transcend into the spiritual world of storytelling. In Indonesian culture, these puppets are a bridge between the real and the spiritual. They are both objects of performance as well as living entities whose job it is to tell their story.
Once everything is built, and it has all of that energy that you've put into it during the production phase, then you take it into performance and you see how it can live and tell a story within the moment.
Whether or not have the character, or whether or not to be good or have a soul or not. Firstly, I have to look to the puppet.
And I'll look at it this way and that way and play with it in different ways and see, oh, it really moves well in this heavy way, or it really moves well in this kind of sliding way, and it doesn't move so well in this kind of jerky way.
From this puppet we can see old people, white hair a little bit here, fat. Perhaps that puppet need to walk slow. Something like that.
In traditional wayang performances, the head puppeteer, or dalang, along with the gamelan orchestra, are responsible for bringing the wayang puppets to life. Each puppet represents a character of religious significance, and the dalang has dedicated his or her time to understanding the subtle nuances of these characters.
If you're holding a puppet, they have their own life, which you've taken time to discover. And the way you've discovered it is by playing with yourself, basically, and the puppet, and seeing what it does and who it is and how it moves and how it talks. But that's all through you.
So it depends on the puppeteer, how to move the puppet and how that character fits with the voice, fits with the story, and fits with the body.
The puppets are beings within themselves. They are created by people, but they are endowed with the spirit and the life of the being that they represent.
It's living right then and there. So it has to be alive. It has to have the energy that the puppeteer can instill in it. It has a soul for sure because it tells a story.
So if you have Sita. Sita is a mythological figure. She is a being that is part of the Ramayana. Stories have been told about her for thousands of years. And the idea of Sita is out there in the universe. And every time somebody makes a shadow puppet of Sita, they breathe into her the spirit of Sita.
It's a matter of kind of surrendering into what you're doing. And I think the more you invest yourself into what you're making, the more alive it will be.
The role of these puppets is changing. They were first commissioned so that they could be performed in front of an audience. But as time moves on, their identity has taken on new meaning. They have traveled from Indonesia to Canada, where people are unfamiliar with the significance of these objects.
The puppets have this very rich traditional background, and then they've come here into this museum. We have 100 or so on exhibit here in the gallery here in 2009. But that's different again, right? They're not being used. They're not part of a story. They're very static.
These spiritual figures are now being used to tell a different story. They are on display in a museum so that people can learn about the Wayang and the culture that cherishes the Wayang and their stories.
Right here, we've tried to have them out where people can see them, don't touch them, but to see them and interact with them and really, get up close and see the beauty and intricacy of the work. What the video people can do, what you guys can do, is to take that and in a safe environment where we can still preserve the objects, we can use them again. It allows the puppets to come into our world and to bring all of the knowledge and the spirituality that they have embodied within them to our world.
As we have seen, these puppets are far more than objects of performance. They represent a tradition and a culture that is being passed on in new ways. You could say the commissioning family was following their Dharma when donating this collection to SFU.